All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Matt. I'm going to put in one gratuitous plug for my book. I have a book called Product Management in Practice. The second edition of it just came out. I really love this book. This book is my attempt to bring the theory of product management and the practice of product management a little bit closer in line with each other, because most of what you hear about product management is a dirty, filthy lie that makes people act like jerks. And we don't want that. You will notice I am not a UX designer or any kind of designer. That will be abundantly clear from my slides, so thank you in advance for your patience. I want to start by sharing one of the most common patterns I see at companies. And this is a pattern that I see at literally every company. I see this at big companies, at small companies, at digital-first companies, at enterprise legacy companies. This happens at almost every company. So let me walk you through this. It's a beautiful Friday morning. We're in a room or we're on a Zoom. And for one special member of the team, it's time to do a presentation. This presentation is the fruit of days, weeks, perhaps even months of hard work and thought. It is presented competently. It is presented generously. And after its presentation, the presenter turns to the team and says, "Any questions?" And the team says, "Yeah, we do have some questions. We want to help. That statistic you had on slide 3, where did that come from?" And the presenter's like, "Yeah, that's a really good question. I'll think about that." And then someone else on the team goes, "Yeah, I'm actually curious. For the option you presented to us on slide 17, did you consider any different options maybe that you could talk us through?" And the presenter's like, "Yep, I thought about some different, I'll do the, So cut to a week later. It's a beautiful Friday morning. And that same presenter is presenting their updated presentation. And they've answered every question. They have that statistic on slide 3 figured out. That thing they proposed on slide 17, they have 3 options now. A deep breath. My team, I have brought you this gift, the updated slide deck. What say you, my team? Do you accept this gift that I have given you? And the team says, "Yeah, it's pretty good. I like what you did, but did you think about this other option on slide 72? And before you know it, you're stuck in this endless game of ping pong, just batting this presentation back and forth, day after day, month after month. Everybody's doing something, but nobody's doing anything." Does this sound familiar to any of you? Can I get an exhausted groan if this sounds familiar to you? Like a, ugh. Let me hear a bigger one. That was a smaller one, come on. A big exhausted groan. Yeah, this happens everywhere. Let me ask you, does this leave you feeling more trust with your team? Are you like, "Oh boy, I showed my team a presentation I worked on for a month, and then I had to do it over again, and then I still wasn't done with it"? So what's happening here? What's going on? I've been thinking about this a lot and talking to a lot of teams. I coach product teams. I work with product leaders. Why does this keep happening? What is the underlying dynamic that's stopping teams from working together to get things done in a less horrible way? And I think it looks a little something like this. If I am trying to finish something myself, if I set about to bring you the perfect, finished, polished, beautiful PowerPoint presentation, then any feedback you give me moves me backwards. It takes my finished thing and makes it unfinished. Your participation, your critical contributions as members of my team move us backwards. And then I have to go and say, all right, I made the changes, it's finished. No, it's not finished. Okay, this time it's finished. Nope, it's not finished. We talk so much about how important it is for us to work together on cross-functional product teams. But in this dynamic, we are not actually working together. We are working against each other. Your participation sets me backwards. And I wind up resenting you for it. I wind up resenting my team for trying to make our work better. In turn, my team winds up resenting me because they're trying to make my work better and I'm resenting them for it. Everyone gets really cranky when this happens. It's been amazing to me how many times teams think they have another problem when they actually have this problem. I've worked with a lot of teams that say, we need to have a decision rights charter. And I'm like, okay, what's a decision rights charter? It's where it says who on the team can make decisions, because the product manager is trying to make all the decisions and it's not fair. And I'm like, okay. And then they say, I'll do a draft of the decision rights charter and bring it to the team on Monday's meeting. And can you guess what happens? Yeah. On cross-functional teams, this is particularly challenging because there's this constant fear that the people on your team don't get it. I've dealt with this with designers on my team where they present something, here are the wireframes, here's the design, and they ask me for feedback, and I don't really know what kind of feedback to give because, as you can tell, I am not a designer. So I say, I don't know, maybe this thing, and they go, fine, I'll go back and redo it. And I'm like, whoa, I didn't want that. I thought I was helping, but I'm not helping. So what do we do about this? How do we get out of this infinite death spiral of presentation and feedback? I didn't know for a really long time. I struggled with this, and I kept making things worse. Because I would try to do more and do more and do more and try to anticipate every piece of feedback I might get, every objection, everything that somebody might come up with. I would make my 10-slide presentation 50 slides, make it 100 slides, make it 200 slides, try to make sure I covered everything so that nobody would need to set me backwards. Every time I did this, it made things worse. Then a couple years ago, I was coaching a cross-functional product team, and I asked them a question that I'm going to ask you now. I want you to really think about this one. What's the last thing somebody on your team said to you that resulted in you trusting them more and wanting to collaborate more closely with them? Think about this. When's the last time somebody on your team came to you and said something, and as a result of that, you said, wow, I really trust this person. I want to work more closely with this person. I asked this question to a group, and the answer I got completely stunned me. It wasn't what I expected at all. The answer was, I'm stuck. The answer was, I had a designer on my team who came to me and said, I'm stuck. I've gotten as far as I can with this product design, but I really need the team to get me the rest of the way. And boy, I was ready to trust that person with my life after that. Because if they were ready to come to me and say, I'm stuck, if they were ready to get that vulnerable and that open and say, I've gone as far as I can, but I can't finish this without the team's help, I'm getting a chill just thinking about it. That's how you build trust on a team. And I started thinking about this. What is the magic of getting stuck? Other than that it's really cute when a cat gets stuck in something. They always find their way out. They're cats. So if I'm making my work, whether that's a presentation, a product plan, a wireframe, and I get stuck, then my team's feedback doesn't set me backwards anymore, right? It was never finished to begin with. My team's help moves me forward. If I bring something to my team that is unfinished and I cannot finish it without their participation, then we have to work together to finish it. Then their participation moves us forward rather than setting us backwards. Which got me thinking, what if you get stuck on purpose? What if you just stop before you're done? This cat totally did that on purpose. I'm convinced. What if you just choose to not finish and bring something to your team and say, I'm not finished, I need your help? Which brings us to the name of this talk. This is my favorite image on the internet. I couldn't even tell you why. It just is. What you did there, I see it. So what does incomplete by design mean? It means something really simple. It means that you make your documents and deliverables unfinished on purpose. That's it. Make things unfinished. And then what do you do with that unfinished thing? Bring it to your team and you finish it together. That's it. That's the whole idea. That's the talk. I'm not the first person to have this idea of incomplete by design. There was a great paper published about 15 years ago by Raghu Garud, Sanjay Jain, and Philip Teuscher called Incomplete by Design and Designing for Incompleteness. Look it up. It's a great article. And it says, rather than pose a threat, incompleteness acts as a trigger for action. Even as actors try to complete what has been left incomplete, they generate new problems as well as new possibilities that continually drive the design. In other words, if we leave our solutions incomplete, we can actually reimagine the problem. How cool is that? When we show up with something that's not finished, we can renegotiate what the thing is. So when we talk about situations where people don't feel like they have a seat at the table, this is the table right here. Show up with something incomplete, and suddenly everyone has to have a seat at the table, because if they don't take that seat, the work doesn't get done. Share incomplete things. Finish them with your team. It sounds really simple. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how magical this is and why it's actually really hard to do. So when this works effectively, my documents become our documents. And this is my favorite thing that happens on teams when they start working in an incomplete by design way. Quick question for you. When was the last time you shared a document and got either no response or a looks fine response, only to find out that it was not fine at all? Think about it. The last time you shared something with your team or with your manager and they said, yeah, that's fine. And then a week later they said, what the hell is that? And you said, I sent the email to you and technically you didn't respond and say it was bad, so this is not my fault and I cannot be in trouble right now and that's the law and no backseas. This was my entire approach to work for the first 5 years I was a product manager. I was like, technically I sent you an email with an attachment. You did not respond to said attachment, therefore implicit approval, therefore this is your fault, not mine. That doesn't work. Please never do that. When you need to complete a document, whoa, there it is. You need to pay attention to the document. If I show up with something incomplete and say, we're completing this together, you're accountable to it in a different way. You're actually going to pay attention to it. This is particularly important when we get into comments. I have very mixed feelings about comments on Google Docs and on Figma prototypes and on anything. People look like complete monsters in comments. Like a comment thread, my wife was kind enough to leave an example comment. This is not really the kind of comment she leaves, I promise. People leave comments on the wrong things. They litigate things that are meaningless. They argue about things that are totally off base. It is a massive waste of time and energy, and it creates a lot of bad feelings on teams that don't need to have bad feelings. And the reason for that is pretty straightforward, right? If I share a finished document with you, your comments set me back and I get cranky. And I'm left with no good option. Either I have to resolve 100 comments, thanks for your 100 comments, or I leave them in the document like history's greatest monster. I just leave your questions in there and I share the document anyhow, demonstrating that I do not care what you think at all. Nobody wins. But if I share an incomplete document and I say, yep, this document sucks. It is incomplete. I am stuck. Let's finish it together. Then we finished it together. If there is one tactic I've seen have an immediate transformative effect on the day-to-day work of cross-functional teams, it's editing documents live. Just being like, oh, we think that should change? Boop, boop, I changed it. Rather than doing the thing that so many of us do where we say, I will take this under consideration, please leave some comments, and we will have a passive-aggressive argument over 1,000 responses to those comments, and nothing will get done. It shows that you're not precious about the thing you created. You're just like, yeah, sure, it's a draft. Let's change that. It's always so funny to me when I do that. I'll share a document sometimes and say, I turned off comments because we're just going to change it together. And people are like, what? I'm like, yeah, what do you think? And they're like, I didn't like this word. I'm like, okay, changed it. What? Those 3 seconds would have been like 3 hours of major cortisol responses if we had done this over comments. When this works, collaboration moves us forward, not backward. I think this is so important. Again, the way most teams work, when I ask you to give me feedback on a thing I've already finished, you can only move me backwards. But when I show up with something unfinished, you can only move me forwards. And you need to move me forwards. Now here's the funny thing. I tell teams about this and they're like, yep, we're going to do an incomplete by design thing for this thing that doesn't really matter. Let me tell you the thing that has blown my mind about doing this. The more important the document is, the more impactful an incomplete by design approach is. That 100-slide presentation that you're going to give to company leadership, that document that captures how your startup is going to operate, that's where you should be doing this. You can do this with product specs, with team charters, with marketing plans, with research debriefs, with org transformation plans, book chapters, great for book chapters, with workshop designs, great for workshop designs. It's really funny. I worked with a company a while ago where they were like 100 slides deep into making an organizational transformation plan. 100 slides. And they were like, oh yeah, we'll just send this to the whole company and they'll do what it says. And I said, that's cool. You mind if I just take a look at it and like do like a back of napkin summary? Just like make a really messy document saying like what I took away from it. Okay, sure, go ahead. So I show up at the next meeting with a really messy Google Doc and I'm like, yeah, here's what I took away from this. And one by one, each member of this executive team tells me why I am wrong and bad. You took this, I never would have said that. That's terrible. We don't want people to do that. We don't want people to think this. Why would you say that? And then the next person would say, oh, I thought that was what we actually wanted people, oh. And it turned out very quickly that within these 100 slides, everybody had put their own different perspective. But nobody had actually listened to each other at all. These were about 20 slides per executive team member representing how they thought the company should operate, and so on and so forth. So I showed up with this messy thing and I said, let's just try to finish this together. Wasn't easy, but it was really different. This team actually started to listen to each other a little bit because they had to. Because it wasn't my slides versus your slides versus his slides versus her slides. We had one document to create together. So where do we start with this? Again, this is pretty simple. It's pretty simple, but it's not always easy. The simplest path to incomplete by design is often to involve non-negotiable constraints on both format and time. And I use the word non-negotiable here because some of us are very good at negotiating constraints. Some of us, when we're told do a one-pager, it's like, great, I will do a one-pager in 5 weeks, and it will be the perfect one-pager, and all other one-pagers will cower before it. I am one of these people. I'm a perfectionist. I really like to impress people. I like to get positive feedback on the work I do. And the idea of truly embracing an incomplete by design approach has been really, really, really hard for me. My business partners pointed this out to me because even as I was going into organizations, coaching them on this really simple idea of incomplete by design, I would still show up to our partners meeting with like, here is the workshop design. It is perfect. You will love it. I am so competent and so capable. Don't worry, team, I have taken care of everything. I present this to you. You are welcome. My business partner said, you know, Matt, your job is literally to tell people not to do this, and you're doing it. I said, well, yeah, I'm doing it because like you two are super smart and cool, and I just want you to think that I know what I'm doing. And they said, and I said, that's why people aren't all doing this, because it does require a certain amount of trust and vulnerability. It's really hard to show up for your team who expects you to be an expert on something with something that is messy and incomplete. It's stressful, it's challenging, it's scary. So I turned to my partners and I said, all right, look, I can't do this anymore. Hold me accountable. And I opened up a document and I wrote this. I wrote a pledge to my business partners. I am prepared to forego the sense of individual accomplishment that comes from presenting finished, polished deliverables to my colleagues. I believe that co-creation drives stronger decisions, shared accountability, and better outcomes. Therefore, I pledge that I will spend no more than 1 page and 1 hour working on any deliverable before sharing it with my colleagues. I invite my colleagues to hold me to accountable for this commitment and join me in taking the 1 page, 1 hour pledge. I showed this to my colleagues and I said, don't let me get away with breaking this. And they didn't. They haven't. Sure enough, I would show up at meetings and say, here's my file, and they would go, nope. You made a promise to us. Why are you breaking that promise? It changed what success looked like. It changed where positive feedback came from. Where now I wasn't getting that positive response anymore. I wasn't getting that little dopamine hit of look what a good job I did when I overfinished something before bringing it to my team. I got gently shamed by my team for it. And it really made a huge difference. Every time I have broken this pledge, I have regretted it. Every time I've said, no, but I really know what we're doing. I can do 2 pages. I've overdone it. Every time I've spent more than 1 hour and gotten too attached to something, I've regretted it. Sometimes that 1 page is just a bunch of scribbles on a page. Sometimes it's a drawing. Sometimes it's a slide. But I feel like my team has collectively saved weeks, if not months of our time. Months of rework, months of that stress response, making it harder for us to work together, just by following this simple rule. So I made a website for it. And if you go to onepageonehour.com, you can take the pledge also. You can sign up, it will send me an email, and then I will add your name to a website. This is still very manual. It's a bespoke, handcrafted website. But I've been amazed at how this idea has taken off. We've had people I don't know from companies like Disney and Amazon and American Express find this and sign up for it and share it with their teams. And with the teams I coach, it has made such an enormous difference. A while ago, a product manager I work with had a UX designer on another team come to her and say, hey, what's your team working on? I need to know. And she was like, felt like an accusation, right? And she said, you know what? I'm going to spend 1 page in 1 hour and just send you something. And the UX designer said, okay, cool. A week later, she goes to the UX designer. Was that okay? Was it okay? It was really messy. It was really messy. It was really messy. It wasn't finished. The UX designer said, yeah, it was awesome. It's actually exactly what we needed. My team's starting to do that now to share what we're working on with other teams. It saves everybody time. This simple but not easy intervention, applying constraints to the work we do, forcing ourselves to get stuck so that we can trust our teams to get us unstuck, is the single most powerful intervention I've seen in the way that cross-functional teams work together. So I invite you to join me. onepage1hour.com, print it out, put it up over your desk, put it on the back of your laptop, invite your colleagues along with you. We can move forward together, and we can do it one page in 1 hour at a time. That's my talk. Thank you very much.